If you guys are wondering why I don't really love the Vampire Diaries anymore, this episode should tell you why, because damn is the show ballsy. Hey guys, camera for the original Season 3, Episode 19, No More Heartbreaks, and oh my god guys, there is so much to get into with this episode. I mean, I knew going into this episode this was going to be sad. I knew that. I mean, just from what happened at the end of the last episode, I knew that no good was going to come out of this, especially Julie Plex saying that they were going to kill off 3 major characters before the season's over. That really got me worried. I was really thinking, alright, some characters' days are numbered, and I really did get worried as to what was going to happen, but nothing prepared me for this episode, which is without a doubt the most soul-crushing, saddest episode of the originals they've ever had, but also I think a contender for one of the best episodes we've ever had. I mean, this episode was sad, it was satisfying, it was cathartic, it was really heartwarming at times, and just a great send-off overall. And I overall really love this episode. Without a doubt, the best episode of the season. I mean, this episode was incredible. And also, in my opinion, I really think should be a contender for Leah Pipes possibly being nominated for an Emmy because she was incredible in this episode. But let's just get into it. There is so much to get into in this episode, as I said. Probably going to be the longest review the originals have ever done because I have a lot to say about this episode. Of course, it's also going to be the first originals review I do that's edited. And let's just get into it because there's a lot to talk about. So, right away, of course, as we know in the last episode, Cami was, of course, bitten by Lucien, and we didn't really know what was going to come out of this, if she was going to be okay. It seemed like she was going to die, and it starts with Lucien opening the drape, saying it's a lovely day. Cami lies on the floor, but wakes as he puts on the kettle. She looks at the bite on her arm, and already knows that she's going to die. Just the look on her face in general, she knows she's going to die, and there really is no other way of changing that. She's going to die. She's not going to come back from this, and he says, sorry, but her days were numbered the day that she caught Klaus's eye, and the way that Lucien is just so casual about it, I mean, you can't help but hate this character. I mean, I already hated Lucien, but this episode, this guy is a fucking douchebag, and he needs to die in, this season. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I mean, Lucien is just so powerful, especially what he does in this episode. Everything that happens in this episode is pretty much indirect results of Lucien, and I don't really know if they're going to be able to, if they're going to be able to bring him to justice. I really don't know if they're going to be able to, because it seems like the only way they're going to be able to is to kill him. There really is no other way. So Cami throws an artifact at him, it splats into his neck, he heals up and smiles wickedly, then gets his tea, because obviously these objects are doing nothing to him. Cami runs outside away from him, obviously just not knowing what he's going to do next. She's already terrified, knowing she's going to die. She wants to die peacefully. She doesn't want to have to die from being stabbed again, and she looks to the bite in her, and basically she goes to Klaus's place and he's there, and it's this fantastic scene between her and Klaus. I loved all the scenes that we got here. They really were fantastic, and she says that Lucien wants him mad to lure him into their trap. She says promise to stay calm. He sees her arm and the bite and is completely horrified right away. You can just see the look on his face. He does not know how to handle this, and Cami says that she loves him and won't let him go get him get self-killed. She collapses. He picks her up, says he'll tell her he loves her tomorrow, but she can't die today, and he's gonna make sure that she doesn't die today. And we know that she probably is going to die, even though Klaus is kind of in denial and is hoping that she won't die. I mean, now that he has Cami back on his side and now things seem okay for her, he's really hoping that she's going to be okay. And Cami comes to later, sees Hayley speaking her name, and Klaus says that this will burn, and this... fuck. One of the reasons I think that this was one of the most emotional and satisfying episodes the original has ever done is because it wasn't just a goodbye for Cami and Klaus. This was a goodbye for Cami for everyone, and I love that we got to see the gang back together. You know, we've seen them together, but this time they're basically forced to come together, put their differences aside, and be there for Cami, and everything really resolved in being there for Cami, and I definitely really love that. I think that really added to this episode, and I definitely love the way that that was done. We see Cami, she comes to later. She sees Hayley there speaking her name. Klaus says this is going to burn. Freya had made her a healing salve to put on her arm. She says it will ease the symptoms, but that's all, and it's not really going to do much of anything. It's just there to basically, let her feel less pain. And Hayley says that they will do everything they can. Vincent shows up, says he's sorry. Klaus says he turned Lucien to a beast, and Cami says stop. And Klaus says that Lucien is obsessed with him, and they wonder if his blood might kill him. Cami says she spilled his blood all over the place, and Vincent goes to collect some, and basically Hayley says she'll try and see if hope can cure her since she's a Mikealson witch, and it might be able, she might be able to do that. And we see that they really are uncertain of if they're going to be able to save her, but I love it. They've they've all come together to just fulfill this one common goal, to save Cami. They want to do whatever they can to do that. They don't really know what's going to come out of it, but they're hoping that they will end up victorious, and I really just love this scene. The fact that they don't have that hope, it is really sad to see, but they are trying to stay hopeful, even though they know that most likely there is really no way of saving Cami, even though they really want there to be a way. So as we know, at the end of the last episode, Kol seemed to get away from Davina, like it seemed like he was out of the picture, but right away he's back here. We see Davina ran to Kol when she finds him, he says, please go. She asks why he's doing this, and we knew that she wasn't just going to let him get away. I mean, he left, obviously, without saying goodbye, she doesn't know why, and he says the ancestors won't let him leave, and says he desiccated at the city limits. He says he's cursed deeply. He says he has no peace, just endless hunger, and Davina says there must be a fix, and basically, you know, she really wants to try to help him. She doesn't know if she can help him, but she knows that there's something going on with Kol. He's had this weird bloodlust, and she really wants to see if she can control that. And she then gets a call from Vincent, who says that Lucien bit Cami and says she's bad, and he wants her to get her, but she says she'll meet him there, because of course she is a witch and she can possibly save her, but he says look out for Lucien, and that Lucien definitely, we know, they know how terrifying, and they know how, much of a force to be reckoned Lucien really is, and what kind of damage he could do. If he could do that to Cami, he could do that to Davina, and I love that Vincent has his genuine concern for Davina. I really do love seeing that. Cami finds basically... He's looking out for Lucien. We see Cami finds Klaus staring at comatose Aurora, and Cami says all of her anger and fear is not her, and says she helps people like Aurora and won't let her take that from her. And Davina wants to go to Lucien and calls him a second-string copycat, and Kol tries to stop her. She knocks him back with magic. She says maybe Lucien can tell her what's up with the ancestors and what they did to him, because she doesn't really know what exactly happened to Kol. She just knows that all of a sudden he has this bloodlust, and she says she knows how to get Lucien to tell the truth, walks out. Kol screams at her to come back, and basically, he really wants to be able to stop this. He wants to see her, he wants to be with her, but she obviously wants to help him, which, we can tell that Kol doesn't really know if that's possible and if it really is going to work out. So Freya brings Klaus something to slow Cami's infection, even though Cami... again, they know is infected and that she probably is going to die. They do want to try to slow down the process so Cami gets as satisfying as a goodbye as possible. So Freya says keep her calm, he storms off. Cami stares out the window listening to the sounds of the city. She says it's a beautiful day, and Klaus says they can go for a stroll later and hands her the blend that Freya made, and Cami says that smells, offers to make him a drink, and it's this incredibly fantastic scene between Cami and Klaus, because we are reminded how Cami and Klaus met. She was a bartender, if you guys remember. That's who she was originally, and we finally get to see her back in her element in this episode. She remembers those days when she was a bartender with the endless parade of faces. They clink glasses and drink, and it's a really great scene. I love the way this was done, and in this next scene, we're basically reminded how we were introduced to Cami. If you remember, she was a bartender that Klaus met and immediately became close with. She was kind of the moral compass, the one that looked at things in a certain way. Obviously, she had her brother that committed suicide, but other than that, she tried to stay positive, and you really always saw that positivity in Cami, and this really reminds us of who she once was before she turned to a vampire. And a lot of people have said that her being a vampire did not work, but I feel like that's kind of the point, that Cami never felt like herself, which is why she's kind of okay with her dying, is kind of reflecting on who she once used to be. And basically we see this great scene where basically Cami is staring out the window, listening to sounds of sea. She has a beautiful day. Klaus says they can go for a stroll later, hands her the blend that Freya made. Cami says that it smells and offers to make him a drink. She says that she loved being a bartender with the endless parade of faces, and it's just something she enjoyed. She always saw these happy faces who were enjoying what she was doing, and she misses it, and they clink glasses and drink. And Cami says she used to think if you gave someone booze, they'd tell you anything, but says people just want you to listen, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, when you really have a story and you want to tell someone, a lot of times you do go to a bartender, you kind of just tell her their sob story, and she says she should have published Klaus's story, then asked him to write up her will, and she says she doesn't want to leave loose ends, says he owes her since she wrote his tales down, and he gets paper. You can tell that Klaus doesn't want to do this, but he wants to do what Cami wants him to do, obviously. He really doesn't want to think about her dying, but obviously she'd want him to do this, and it's a really great scene, and it really does show the chemistry these two do do have. Even though they were apart for a while and that they weren't exactly on the same page, they do still love each other, and they always will, and I think this episode really does prove the real chemistry that they two really have. And Joseph Morgan and Leah Pipes just act the hell out of pretty much every scene they were in, and I absolutely loved it. So amazing stuff there. It really, I think, brought Cami full circle in this episode, and really, I think, was a fantastic tribute to her character, because that's pretty much what all of Cami's plot was a tribute to her character, remembering who she used to be, remembering why we love Cami as a character, and I think it really just added to the sadness and basically melancholy but bittersweet tone of this episode, without a doubt. So Marcel comes to watch Vincent's back, asks about Cami. He says that she's about to die because of a vampire vendetta, and Vincent is collecting blood. Marcel says focus. Vincent does a spell to gather the blood. It fills a bowl, and then he struggles against the Ancestors' power, and I love how Marcel really does want to save her. I mean, we're reminded back in Season 1 that Marcel and Cami were in a relationship, if you remember, that brief thing that they had in Season 1, and he still does care about her. He hasn't, not cared about her ever since. Maybe they're not together, but he still will always have those feelings for her, and you really do see that here, and he says the Ancestors don't want him using magic. He caps the bowl, and they go, and you really can tell how impossible it seems that to be defeating the Ancestors. I mean, we know that Lucien pretty much is in full control of them, and meanwhile, we're basically getting to see in this next scene how sinister and terrifying Lucien really is. I mean, this really, without a doubt, I mean, like I said, Lucien is a very terrifying presence, but this was just crazy. We remember when Lucien was introduced this season, of course. The first time we saw him, he was cutting his cheek and laughing about it, and this scene really just shows how sinister and evil Lucien really is, because while everyone else is mourning Cami and everything and trying to, save her, he's partying with vampires at a bloodthirsty gathering. He says the Mikealsons are hiding while he liberates New Orleans. He says Klaus will come seeking retribution and the real party can start, and he knows that he's winning. That's the thing. Lucien knows that he's winning. He knows that there's no way that he's not winning, and that basically he is going to win no matter what. And Davina then salts the doors, magic the party to an end. She says it's not polite to stare, then knocks out everyone but Lucien. He leaps down off the bar, says clever girl but a buzzkill. He comes to her, she knocks him back with magic. She pulls out a doll, and he laughs because it's a doll, and she says that this will make him speak the truth, and he's very intrigued by the fact that she's saying this, and that a doll is going to make him speak the truth. He doesn't really understand how this is going to work out, and you can tell that he really feels that Davina has no power over him, but it really does seem like in this scene, which I really love, that they did kind of have equal power, and I really did love seeing that. And we remember how powerful Davina was. I mean, she started off the season as the most powerful being out of everyone, and now Lucien is so much more powerful than her, and it's incredible to watch, and seeing these two, who are both very powerful, and seeing them actually in this scene together really was crazy. And Daniel Campbell and whoever plays Lucien really acted the hell of the scene. They both did a great job, and I really love that. The other thing I love about Lucien is how well realized of a villain he really is. I mean, we know why he's doing all this stuff. He's not just doing it to kill people, he's doing it to seek retribution for Aurora. He never got to be with Aurora. Aurora loved Klaus. This is basically his revenge for that, and we do get to see that in this scene between him and Davina, which we will eventually talk about. But I really think they've really utilized the villain well, and I think that's the thing that Vampire Diaries just hasn't done as well this season. The originals understands villains. They know how to write compelling villains, and they know that every villain needs some sort of motivation. And Lucien's is Aurora, and it seems silly, but that really is the motivation. It's that, it's power, and of course, basically being the head original is really what he wants to be, and basically be what Klaus formerly used to be, and he kind of is that right now. It's an incredibly, just really well-realized villain, and it's one of the things that's making the season as great as it is, I think at least. So Cami leaves Davina all her clothes, but nothing too revealing. She leaves Josh her records, and to Vincent she leaves her books and Kieran's and Kieran's files. If you remember Father Kieran. It's a really nice scene because we see that Cami, again, she's okay with dying. She knows that this is going to be it, but she's okay with leaving these things behind. And Klaus writes, Cami leaves Elijah an old game of Trivial Pursuit under her bed. She leaves her dark objects to Hayley for hope when she's old enough, since she's a New Orleans witch. And it's a really great scene because you really do see that she does want her memory, she does want to be remembered, and she does want everyone to get something out of this, and she gets to what she leaves Klaus, but he tells her to stop, and he's not going to let her do this. He's not just going to let her cut things short. He wants to talk to her, and it's a really powerful scene, definitely. So Lucien tells Davina that he's a Scorpio with a sweet truth. She says, tell me how to cure Cami. He steps across the salt line, says that he'll tell her anything because she obviously does want to cure Cami. We know that Cami is one of her friends, and she really wants to help her, and she asks how he's doing this. Venus, and he says the ancestors are helping him. She asks why they would help him, and Lucien says that he made them a promise to exterminate the Mikealsons, and Cami is choking, and Freya brings her the blood to drink. She gulps it down. Lucien says that there's no way out, no loophole to save her from her doom, and that she's gonna die. There is no way to save her. And it's a really satisfying, it's really sad scene, but also very inevitable. You knew that Cami really wasn't gonna come back from this. I mean, we knew that they weren't just gonna bullshit it. They killed her, they faked her death once before. They're not gonna do it again. Because when a show does that again, I mean, that's when I can no longer take it seriously. This is a show that does take itself seriously, and because of that, I think this was a very well done scene. Just realizing what Lucien has done, realizing that this time Cami is saying goodbye for good, and basically that we have to say goodbye her in this episode is very sad to see. And you can see the look on Davina's face as well. I mean, Davina's kind of been away from all this chaos, but she herself feels like she's caused this, and that she really is a part of this, and that she really is just upset about Cami as everyone else is, and I really love seeing that. A lot of people say Danielle Campbell is the worst actress on the show, but I really think she gave some of her best acting to date in this episode. It never fell flat, it felt very genuine, and it really showed Davina caring for someone, which you really haven't seen her do since Kol. That's been the one constant in her life, is Kol and Marcel, and Josh, of course, and those have been the people on her side. Cami, we know she has had interactions with, and Cami, of course, did help her, with many things. Hayley, of course, as well, but Cami has always been sort of a friend to her, and I really love that scene, though, really showing your genuine concern for Cami throughout this entire episode. I really think Danielle Campbell did a great job with that. So, basically, Lucien tells Davina his bite has no cure. He says Cami will die, and basically that there's really no way out of this. Even though she wants her to be, there is no way out of this. So then we get a really great scene between Hayley and Elijah, and while this episode, of course, was focused mainly on Klaus and Cami, we do need to focus on Hayley and Elijah, because we know that they're starting to move forward. We can tell that definitely these two, they're starting to get closer, and this is probably the closest they've ever been is in this episode. Hayley and Elijah go to the bayou. She says hang because Mary doesn't like vampires, and Elijah says he couldn't save Jackson, and she says she knows and is taking her 2-year-old into a war zone, and she really doesn't feel it's safe in New Orleans, even though she knows that Hope needs to go to be here. Basically, she says her lives are insane. She can't keep losing people. He says he's not afraid to die and knows she isn't either. He says they fight for those they love. She steps around to go to the cabin and get Hope. And it's just a really nice scene. You can see these two are starting to lose hope, but the one thing they have is each other. And Elijah really does want to be there for Hayley, and I feel that really a lot of these deaths are just going to bring these two closer together. It really does seem like by the end of the season, Elijah is going to be full game. I could definitely see these two getting together. I think it's the one thing that Hayley really does want. She needs someone like Elijah who really does care about her and will do anything for her, because we've always known that Elijah is in love with Hayley. We've known this since the beginning of the show. Hayley, of course, was with Jackson, though, and she didn't necessarily reciprocate those feelings until, of course, Jackson died, and she realized that she never really loved Jackson, and that she really loved Elijah, and that really is what this was all about. So I thought that was very interesting. I really did love that scene, especially in an episode full of tense scenes and full of sad stuff with Cami and Klaus. It was really nice to see this. I definitely really did love this. So then we get some of the hardest scenes to watch in this episode, without a doubt, which I definitely do want to get into. It's something that I didn't think the show would do, but impressed me more and more than... even more than I thought the show would. I mean, I knew this was going to be sad, but just this really was on a whole other level. I mean, just let's talk about it. I knew going into this episode things were going to be sad. Like I said, Julie Plex said that 3 characters were going to die, and when they basically confirmed Cami was going to die in the beginning of this episode, I knew things weren't going to look good. I mean, we saw that expression on her face. We knew that she was going to die. But these scenes were just amazing, and again, really did feel like the most satisfying way to kill off Cami, and you can really tell this is a final death because of how well fleshed out this was. We see Cami lies in bed, she's very still, Klaus sits at her side holding her hand, Freya comes in and looks at her, and Cami sits with Klaus in a dream state where the rest of the episode they pretty much are in this dream state, and it basically is back to this perfect day. The sun is shining. He says they just have to wait for the cure to take effect. He says tomorrow they can go to Rome, and she laughs, and it really is them getting to spend those last moments together. You know, even though Cami isn't okay, they're communicating in this dream world, and it's very interesting to see. And I first thought this was a flashback, but it's clearly not. Cami says if she knew that he was such a romantic, she wouldn't have played so hard to get. He says that they'll enjoy this perfect day. And yes, that is true. Cami did play hard to get. We remember at the end of season 2, she offered him that chance to be together, but he walked away because he just didn't feel that she deserved him and that he deserved her. And Freya walks away, leaves them to it. Freya comes down, tells Vincent that she's getting worse and that there really is no way to save her. But these scenes between Cami and Klaus I absolutely loved. And they're full of catharsis. narcissists. They really are. I mean, they're full of stuff, like seeing how these two met and everything. It's very sad. We're reminded of how they met, and I really did enjoy that. But again, this was all because of Freya. I really loved seeing that, and really good stuff here. Some of the most emotional scenes in the episode, without a doubt, were the scenes between Cami and Klaus in this dream state. So Freya comes down, tells Vincent that Cami is getting worse, and Vincent asks if the Strix can help, but Freya says it's a pure strain of wolf venom, and there may be no cure. They might not actually be able to save her. Even though they want to, they might not be able to. And Vincent says, what else is there besides blood magic? Hayley comes in, says that she has a magical miracle baby. Lucien then snarks at Davina, who tells him to go to hell. She asks why he's doing this, and he says because he can. She says he didn't have to hurt Cami, and he finally admits why he's doing this, and it's the fact that Klaus did steal the love of his life, and that's what this was all about. He says he realized that love makes him weak, and he can prove it, and he says when Cami dies, he felt that basically it was his destiny. He knew that Klaus was always in love with Cami. That never changed. I mean, obviously the Cami he knew was kind of left after she turned to a vampire, but now she's kind of being able to balance herself and realize who she really is, and because of that, he felt that it was his duty to kill Cami, and I completely understand. I mean, obviously, he's still a savage killer, and still is, a evil person, evil, figure, and probably the most savage, just aggressive, destructive character we've ever had on the show, without a doubt. But Lucien says, please go away. Davina asks why he's letting her go. He says she's not his to kill. The answers have something else in mind for her, and says ask her boyfriend Kol about it, and that really concerned me. And the second he said that, the fact that Lucien is not killing her, that's really killing Davina, because she wants to just straight up be killed now. She thinks, alright, just kill me, that's the best thing to do. But no, he's not going to do that. He has something else planned, which we will get into. So back in the dream state, Klaus sits with Cami deep into his thoughts. She says this is her favorite time of day. He says he wishes he had left the usual drinks out of the alternate reality. She says he can't micromanage the world. Says healthy, happy people get by without getting their way all the way to the top. Klaus says he has nothing to fear, and she says he's not sure what will happen when she's gone. She says when they first met, he was damaged and dangerous, but wanted to show that he was more than that, and showed him his whole life. And we remember how Cami was kind of like a therapist to Klaus, and she says that he's capable of joy, hope, and love, and to never forget that. Even though most people thought that Klaus was evil, he always has had good in him. He always does love people, and he genuinely cares for people, and she says he's loved by his family and by her, and finally, those I love yous are exchanged here, which I absolutely loved. I mean, we knew that was going to happen at some point, but I didn't think that was actually we were going to get to them. We finally do get to that here. She says love will make him strong, and will make him the man he's meant to be. She says she won't be here to remind him. His thoughts slip a bit, and Cami says to look at her, but then says it'll be okay, and it's interesting. Anytime she kind of references she's going to die, we see that he kind of gets out of it, because he wants to pretend that he's in this dream state. This is the world that he wants to be in. He wants to be in a world where Cami isn't dying, that Cami's completely okay, but she's not okay, as we know. She's not the human, good-natured person that she used to be. I mean, she's still just as good-natured, but she's not okay. We know she's gonna die, and it's very sad to think about. All these scenes are very sad. Cami says, look at me, and then says it'll be okay. He holds her hand. Davina goes back to Kol, who is slipping a blood bag. She says he lied to her. She says he didn't tell her about the spell, and says they wanted him to kill her. He says he adores her and can't tell her he wants to rip out her throat, and he says eventually that he's just gonna give in, and that he's not gonna be able to control himself, and he hands her a dagger. She asks where he found it. He says do this. He says this will keep her safe while she finds a way to save him. She says she waited so long to have him back, because the entire season we know was her trying to find Kol, and now that she has him back, she has to kill him. He says bring him back when her mind is right. He says she can't love him as he loves her if she can't trust him. She kisses him, slides the blade into his heart, and he goes down. And obviously she didn't want to have to do this, but in order to control him, that was the only way to do it, was to basically dagger him for a little bit. And obviously he's not dead. She's going to bring him back. Well, he's dead right now, but she's going to bring him back when she can, and you definitely do get that sense. So Freya tells Elijah she's tried Hope's blood too, but the infection is spread everywhere, and it's just not going to work. And she says Cami won't last much longer. Cami is broken out in sores and sweating. Freya mops her brow, and Vincent says channel me and cast a healing spell. Freya says will only work for the family. It's not going to work for anyone else outside of it. And she says it can move her soul, but Vincent says she won't agree, and Elijah says that Cami lived with grace and must have it in her death. And basically then we get the big scenes between Cami and Klaus, which I absolutely love the way this next scene was done. I don't really think they could have done a scene more satisfying than the way this next scene was. By this point, it is an understatement that this episode is sad. This episode is truly tragic, and it's also very cathartic, but it's also very bittersweet because we know we were reminded of the chemistry that Klaus and Cami had, the things that they remember on their first date, the time that they first met, and it's a very powerful scene. But her death scene has to be the most emotional thing we have ever seen on this show. I mean, we've seen emotional deaths, such as Finn even. I mean, Finn was even a sad death, but nothing, I think, has ever really compared to the way this was done. This was really sad. I mean, I was definitely crying, but I don't think they could have really done this scene better than they did here. We see, as we know, Cami, as we can clearly see, is dying, and in the dream world, they're in Jackson Square. She says this is the night that they met. They watch an artist paint and talk about controlling demons. She says she's tired and nearly collapses. Cami says she feels like she's always known him because she's been in his mind, or that's how she knows she loves someone. She smiles. Klaus says he loves her. She says that she was going to tell him that, he was going to tell her tomorrow. She says that she doesn't have another tomorrow and cries and basically realizes that there really is no time left for her. No one is there but them, and light flares. He says her heart is slowing, and the way the light was such a big part of this scene, the way that it just goes from light to just complete darkness is really cool. And he says her heart is slowing, says she's fighting because she wants to live. She says she wanted to be brave and handle this with dignity. And what I love about this scene is that we knew that Cami knew she was going to die, but she wanted to carry it out. She wanted to be able to live as long as possible, and wanted to make sure that she didn't die, and she wanted to be brave about it and handle this with dignity. She says she can't, doesn't want to go, and is so scared, and it's just so tragic because she's realizing that she doesn't want to die. You know, even though she said that she's going to die and was, you know, accepting it, she really doesn't want to. She wants to be with Klaus. She wants to have this life, and unfortunately she can't, and Klaus tells her that he's there. She says she isn't ready to die, wishes that she had done more. And if you guys don't notice, I don't know if you noticed, but the song that was played was actually the song that was played when Cami and Klaus first met, which I thought, which just added so much more emotion to the scene. I was a mess during the scene, I'm not gonna lie. Klaus says she did everything for him, inspired goodness in him. He says he will carry her with him. She says that that makes her immortal. She cries and she's dying. Klaus holds her in his mind, says stay longer. She asks if he remembers the Bible verse on John's headstone. And the light shines in the darkness. She says she wanted to be his light, then says there's light in him and says end all the anger. She says he has to be so he can be the light for hope, because she does want him to be the good in Hope's life. And I like that she's saying, look, don't try to avenge me. Don't let this break you, because we know every time someone dies that's close to Klaus, it really does break him. And he goes on this mission and he does all these erratic things and he doesn't really think things through. But I like that Cami's telling him, don't avenge me. Don't try to do things that aren't rational. You need to you know, move on from them. You need to deal with your pain in a different way. It's a very powerful scene, and the advice that she's giving him, I mean, again, we know that she's gonna die. She knows that she's gonna die. There is no saving her. It's really sad to see, and Leah Pipes, just like I said, if she doesn't get an Emmy after this episode, at least a nomination, I don't really know what will get her one. She dies, and he's crying, and Cami's officially dead, and he says, don't be, and the last lines he said to her is just, it's heart-wrenching. It really is. He said, don't be afraid, you go now. Says he will also go in time. He knows he's going to die at some point. He says there will be no more pain, no more heartbreak, which of course is why the episode is called No More Heartbreaks. He says she will find peace. She's gone, and he's back in the real world and cries. He holds her hand and basically has accepted that she has to die. He doesn't want to accept it, but he basically was forced to. It's very sad to see, but like I said, I don't really think they could have done this scene better. These two acted the hell out of this scene. We were reminded of the incredible chemistry that they had, and the fact that he did listen to her advice. We can tell he's not going to be destructive about this. He's not just going to go after Lucien and straight up try to kill him, because first of all, we know that he can't do that. We've already seen that he's not able to really kill him, and I don't really know if he's going to be able to. You know, we'll have to see what happens with that. But this scene was just incredible. I don't think they could have done it better. And all the dream scenes in general really just showed what Klaus wanted his life to be like. I think it just really showed how simpler Klaus's life could be if he really was with Cami. But of course, that version is just fiction. It's not true. Cami had to die and Klaus has to go on. I think Klaus realized that. And I think we as fans, this show's also showing that yes, Cami's dead, but we also have to go on. Yes, it's sad that she died, but we can't let this affect us. We need to continue watching the show. And I think they really showed that here as well. Really, I think the most satisfying death we ever had in the show, the most tragic without a doubt, but also I think the most satisfying, and really the best way they could have done the scene. I really don't think there could have been a better way for them to do the scene. It really was just as effective, as emotional, and just as cathartic as a death could ever be, without a doubt. So Davina comes to the compound, sees the sad faces, and I love the way they did the end this episode. We see everyone slowly, gradually goes to Cami and basically says her last words. She says Marcel's name, and he goes to her. He hugs her and cries, and this is kind of bringing these two back together. We know Davina and Marcel had that whole falling out, but this really is kind of bringing them back. We see that they both are dealing with this, and the way that she's actually hugging him, again, seemed like a father figure. I really do love seeing. I think it really does add a lot to this scene. Vincent sits at Cami's bedside crying, says he and the quarter need her, but he won't shy away from what he needs doing. Vincent says he has to stand against the darkness, knows she's there ahead of him, keeping the fire warm and the beer cold. He puts a kiss on his hand and lays it on her head, and really in all these scenes, we're reminded how much of a moral compass Cami really was. I mean, Cami was always the one to give them advice. Cami was always the one to stop them from doing something that they would have done, and Elijah stands behind Freya, says this is not over, that there's work to be done. He says Lucien must go down, and she says no rest for the wicked. Elijah agrees, and basically they have to kill him. You know, he knows straight out, we have to kill this guy. I mean, there's no way that we're going to continue to let him live. We have to do something. And here's the thing. We know Klaus can't kill Lucien, but Elijah might be able to. We'll have to see what happens. I really feel Elijah's going to step up and maybe do something, but we'll have to see what happens with that. Freya asks if Klaus will be okay. Elijah says it's not over. Hayley tells Cami that she hates her, that her little girl will never know her, and it's not fair because of how much Cami did for her. I mean, think of all the things that Cami did for Hayley, the way the bond that they had, the thing that she did for Hope, the fact that she even gave Hope all that stuff, and she says she thought if Klaus liked her, he couldn't be that bad, and she says that Cami deserved better, the family owes her, and basically that they do owe her, that, you know, even though she's dead, they do owe her. Elijah goes to Klaus, lays a hand on his shoulder as he watches the lights of New Orleans. Vincent tells Freya what happened to Cami is on him, since he worked the spell for Lucien, and basically that he really is the reason why this is happening, which is very interesting. I like that he's blaming himself for this, because in many ways, yes, he did go to Lucien. We know for a while Vincent was playing both sides, but this death is really not his fault. I think it's more Lucien's fault than anything else. I mean, Lucien was the one that felt he needed to get revenge. We know this was a revenge mission for Lucien all along. This was his plan. He wanted to kill Cami from the beginning. Aurora was supposed to kill Cami, but she obviously pussied out and turned her into a vampire because she thought that'd be a worse fate for her. Not pussy out, but she did obviously think that'd be a worse fate for her, and that obviously made Lucien angry, and that's why he killed her, because he wanted to do that all along. And basically Freya says that she was part of the spell too, but says that they have his blood and will find a way to unmake him. And then we get what is by far the most surprising scene of this episode. I mean, we knew there was going to be one death, but this scene was just crazy. I mean, I don't know where this came from. This really comes out of nowhere, and just this was insane, really. We knew going into this episode that there was going to be at least 3 deaths before the season's over. Not necessarily this episode, but I had that mindset going in here. I did not think we were going to get 2 deaths in this episode, because this was just crazy. We see basically Davina lies by Kol's body, says she wishes she could talk to him now, and you're thinking, alright, that he's dead, and that Davina really needs Kol in her life, because that's the person that she could go to in this time of need. The wind then blows in her face, a crypt cracks in the cemetery, the compound shakes as it does the bar where Lucien sits. Marcel looks outside as does Davina, lights flare, Davina screams. Kol is magically back alive, but right away he attacks her, he bites her, drains her blood, she goes limp. Kol sees what he's done and speaks her name, and the look on Kol's face after what he's done, I mean, he really sees himself as this monster, as this killer. He bites his wrist, tries to save her, he's just begging her to wake up, but it seems like she's gone. It really seems like Davina's dead. There is no saving her, and now we've had 2 deaths through the episode, and I knew that the show was going to kill off Cami, but I did not think they were going to kill off Davina after they killed off Cami in the same exact episode, and it really shows how ballsy of a show this is. I mean, yes, Cami died, but we need to move on from that, and already we're moving on from that. Davina seems to be dead as well, which Davina's died once already as well, just like Cami, which is very interesting, so we'll have to see what happens there. I don't know if Davina's actually dead, but what a crazy scene. I mean, what a crazy way in the end of the episode, but overall, a beautifully tragic episode with a crazy ending, and really, I don't see how the show can end any darker, but let's get back into this episode, because there's really a lot to talk. So, holy shit, I mean, so much happened in this episode between Davina dying and then Cami dying. It does look like from the promos that Davina might not necessarily be dead. It looks like she's going to go to an afterlife, and maybe the witches that died are going to be waiting for her, so we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. It looks like Marcel wants to save Davina, and we'll have to see if he's able to do that. We now have Vincent and Freya, and I've heard people point out, you know, people have a good point. There is a good point that I've heard most people have, and that is the fact that we don't really need to be on the show show anymore because we have Vincent and Freya. We don't really need her because of that. We have 3 witches. We don't need 3. We only really need 2. And yes, Vincent and Freya are definitely going to stay on the show. I don't see them dying. But there is a third character, and knowing that there is going to be a third character really has me concerned, because I don't think it's going to be Klaus. I don't think it's going to be Elijah. The show would definitely not do that. It's gotta be either Vincent or Freya or Marcel. They are literally the only characters left that you could kill, and I don't know who that's gonna be. Hayley, I think, is gonna be fine. She kind of needs to be on the show. You can't just not have Hayley on the show. You need to have, like I said, that dynamic of Klaus, Hayley, and Elijah. You just kind of need that. But just really crazy stuff. I don't really know what's gonna happen there. Obviously, Freya, no, Elijah wants to kill Lucien. I think Elijah is really gonna be the one that takes this death to heart the most. I think it's kind of gonna be a Diggle situation in Arrow, where he's going to go after Lucien. He's going to try to kill Lucien, even though Cami told Klaus to not hold that, to not let this affect him as much as it does. Of course, Elijah didn't get that message, so he really doesn't seem like he's going to have a problem going after Lucien. I think he's going to. I think he's going to try to kill Lucien. I think it's just going to make things worse, but we'll have to do that's going to be very interesting. And then as far as the whole situation goes, with Elijah and Hayley, I think this is really just going to bring these 2 closer. I think it really is. I think these 2 definitely, we're going to have to see what happens with that. Cole is definitely, we're going to see he's really going to regret this. I have no idea how Cole's going to react to this, what he's going to try to do. I mean, there are a bevy of things Cole could do here. He could try to kill Lucien. He could even try to kill himself. I mean, I really think we're heading into some very dark territory with Cole, and in the show in general. I really don't know where we go, what's going to happen here, how the show can get any dark, but it definitely is going to, because we have 3 episodes left, and I don't know what's going to happen in those 3 episodes, but it's definitely is going to be crazy. And then as far as the Ancestors go, it really seems like they're unbeatable at this point. I don't really know if they're going to be able to beat them. I think they want to hope that they're going to, but I don't really know if it's going to work out. We'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, incredibly amazing episode. It was tragic. It was sad. It was amazingly acted, but a great farewell to Cami, and a very abrupt ending to Davina that I really don't think is the ending to her character. I think we're definitely going to see more of her in the season. Maybe she'll be dead by the finale. I kind of feel like she is going to go away by the finale, but I feel like they are just going to keep her around for a little bit so we get the proper closure to her. But we'll have to see what happens with that. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. Absolutely love this episode. Maybe by far on my top 5 originals episodes, without a doubt. I mean, this episode was incredible. I absolutely loved it. And we'll see. And let me know what you guys saw this episode. And we'll see you guys in the next show, which will be for the series premiere of Houdini and Doyle, which is, of course, a new show on Fox. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.